I'm defending freedom of speech, because that's how people with different opinions settle their opinions in a civil society.
Peterson, do you have any comments on the Nazi presence at your protest? The presence of Nazis and white supremacists assaulting people at your protest. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I don't like Nazis. I'm speaking out the way I'm speaking out because I think this is a route to no violence. And violence is lurking. And you can say that that sounds like a threat.
There was no violence at our protest, though.
I just asked, would you refer to me if it wasn't for this law, and I asked you to refer to me with they, them pronouns, would you? And your answer was no.
Not if I was compelled to.
Joining us right now is Professor Jordan Peterson, as well as Professor A.W. Peet. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks.
Professor Peterson, let's begin with you. Why are you against the use of alternate pronouns?
I'm against the use of legislation to determine what words that myself and other people are required to utter.
But would you use alternate pronouns if a student asked you to?
I think I've made my position on that clear already.
Well, perhaps not to our audience at home who are just being introduced to this. Would you use alternate pronouns? And why not?
Because I don't believe that other people have the right to determine what language I use, especially when it's backed by punitive legislation. And when the words that are being required are the constructions, they're artificial constructions of people I regard as radical ideologues whose viewpoint I do not share.
Well, we have a graphic to show our audience at home, just some of the pronouns being used or asked to be used as alternates. Among them you see here Z or Zim, Z or here, Z or Zir, also hey, or A rather, and per. So just some of the alternate pronouns there. Professor Peet, when you hear Professor Peterson saying that this is oppressive, how do you respond to that?
The Peterson drama has done real harm to real people on campus. He's made it harder to be transgender or non-binary. I know this from personal experience. I'm non-binary and transgender, and I know how it's felt to be on the U of T campus for the last month. And I also know from private communications with other affected people. You know, in New Zealand, where I grew up, academics have a statutory role enshrined in the Education Act to be a critic and conscience of society. So I think that's an idea worth exporting to Canada. So I'd like to give Peterson about a B+ for his critic role recently, and an F for the conscience part. A student once said to me when I finally obtained tenure, "Now, Professor, now that you have obtained superpowers, you must agree to use them for good, for peace and justice." So I invite Peterson to start doing more of that.
Well, Professor Peterson, those who are asking for this alternate use of alternate pronouns, they are saying it boils down to respecting their human rights. How do you respond to that?
I don't think it boils down to respecting their human rights. I think that it's an imposition on freedom of speech that's being implemented at a legislative level. I also think that if there was a naturally evolving solution to the linguistic problem that's being posed by a small fraction of the transgender community, that people would have already adopted it. We've never had a situation in the usage of English before that required legislation to produce a transformation in the manner in which people spoke. Has a very dangerous precedent. So it's one thing to tell people what they can't say. So for example, we have legislation making it illegal to do such things as deny the Holocaust. It's a completely different thing to demand that people use certain words when they're formulating their own ideas. And I mean, it's also absurd. I mean, here's one thing that's happened that I don't believe the formulators of this legislation ever foresaw. So in New York City, for example, there are now 31 protected gender identities. And I see no reason whatsoever why each of those gender identities can't demand the use of their own pronoun. And that absurd things like that have been happening on the University of Michigan campus, for example, where students have been given permission to tell faculty members and others what pronouns they're to be addressed by, and they're multiplying rapidly out of control. So the law is bad from an ethical perspective. It's sloppily written, and besides that, the solution that it imposes is practically untenable.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
Equal. No. We're not equal? No. Really? Then how did you end on a losing stick? How did you guys...
We don't eat our
You know? Okay, but I'm not saying you're like you dogs. I'm just saying as humans, we're all the same.
Conversation later.
Wait, you don't think you think you're better than men?
No. We think we're equal.
That's what I meant. What the fuck did I just say? You are the worst representatives of your race, of your species, of your sex, gender. There you go. I'm saying the same fucking thing you're saying.
But men get paid more than women.
Because we have penises.
30%.
Yes, we have 30% more penis than you do. You have a little clit. I get my 30% more. That's how it works. I don't know if you understand jobs, but they pay you by the inch, by the penis, by the shaft.
I hope you got measured.
Pardon?
I hope you got measured.
I did get measured. I lost this leg in war, lady. This is fucking dick right down here. This is I get paid tons. That's why I'm here at the Cork Tent on Wednesday.
By every metric, men have it worse off. We're more likely to get raped if you include prison. We're more likely to be assaulted. We're more likely to die. We're more likely to commit suicide.
And you're not
if you want to come over to our side of it, then get ready for some rough times.
I will dispute the rape part, but I will say this. Industrial accidents, true. People who build bridges generally are men, and they often fall off them. I get that. You know, that happens. And war, that happens. So I guess, total equality means there'll be more industrial accidents.
Yeah, great.
More counts.
Right, because you're not as smart or as good looking as women as a whole.
Yeah.
We are
So
we are smarter and dumber than women.
Yes, that's true.
Is much wider. We have a wide variety. You guys are more sort of like a little bit dumb, a little bit smart. We're total morons and geniuses.
Where are your statistics for this?
For lack of a better word. If you don't believe me, you got a smartphone, you got something in your pocket.
You can just say, you're just like the guy you
Look it up.
You just throw out this shit.
Look it up.
And think that we're all going to believe it.
Look how many Chinese women, look how many rich Chinese women are coming over here and have their babies for the handouts. Go ahead.
Tell me how many. How many?
Why?
If you know the statistics, how many? Give me a number.
I don't know the percentage.
So where'd you get your...
I've read the articles. I don't have to have it. If you disagree
If you're
with me,
if you're
then
gonna
look it
say
up.
something, if you're gonna say
I'm talking
something
off
as
the
a
cuff.
fact.
I'm not a professional. I'm talking off the cuff with 50 cameras in my face.
Where'd you hear this?
I read articles that
Where?
displayed it.
What article?
He does his homework. It was
Where?
6 months to a year ago that I read it. Am I
In
supposed
what
to give you the
source?
exact post?
In what
Hey, you know
source?
what you have? You have the encyclopedia of the world's history at your fingertips. Google it.
Drudge
Google
report.
it.
On your Drudge report. Infowars.
If you're gonna
Drudge
throw out
report.
this information,
Infowars.
support it somehow.
Okay,
You
I
can't
am
just
supporting
throw
it.
this out.
You're saying it's not true, even though you can't prove it's not true.
You can't prove it is.
I'm not asking you to believe me.
You're
I'm not
saying
asking you to
reading.
believe me and take my word for it. If you disagree,
I don't take your word
then
for
look
it.
it up and
Prove
see
it.
what you can find yourself.
Prove this
Do
before
your own
you throw
research.
this out.
Do your own research. Do your own research.
Do you know that?
Do you want me to hold your
know that
hand and
97
spoon feed you the information, or are you a thinking adult that can
Let
look
me
stuff
talk,
up for
let me
yourself?
talk. Yes, I am a thinking adult.
Then look it up.
97% of what your guy says
97%.
has been shown to be lies.
Where'd you get the statistic? Where's that statistic?
About
No, you can't. It's an independent place. PolitiFact is an independent liberal hack group.
Yes, exactly.
What's the name of the article that you read?
PolitiFact is
What's
an
the name of,
independent
what's the name of the article? What's the name of the article? You can't quote the article? Must not exist.
She's just giving you the source.
You
I'm
talking
giving
about
you don't
Hillary.
have a source. I have a source. What's your
There's
source?
probably 100 articles that were written about it. It was a huge story.
By what media
6 to 8 months
sources?
ago.
You
What
got your
media
tracks
All
all
kinds.
You Google
All
it.
kinds. It was all over Drudge Report and other places. All kinds.
You can Google it right now.
Yeah.
That's right.
Good.
You
You got a
got
smartphone, don't
you
you?
got your
and show it
track.
I don't need to Google it.
It's already
Because-
read the article.
He
You
knows what
read
he's
it.
talking about.
You guys,
They want to bank.
you just want to say whatever you want.
I'm not one of you to believe me. You can
We
look
don't
it
want
up.
to become commies. We're halfway there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We're a long way.